From texting to a simple phone call, we use our phones every single day in order to communicate with each other. But now the question is, how does the phone work? The first phone was credited to Alexander Graham Bell, who was the teacher of the deaf. Okay, while working at that same school, he invented the first telephone in 1876. So basically, a man who has used sign language invented a phone where it could transmit the first human voice to the whole world? Well done, well done. Bell went on and created the first telephone company. This telephone company will later turn into AT&T. Then came along with Martin Cooper, who was the inventor of the cell phone in 1973. He later marketed it in 1983. Okay, back to the technical stuff. What goes on inside the phone that makes it work? When you speak to your phone, there is a tiny microphone that converts your voice into electrical signals. And then later, a microchip will change these signals into strings and numbers. The numbers are packed up into radio waves and beamed out from your phone's antennas. The mast receives the signals and passes them through the base station. From the base station, the call is routed onward to their destination. Now that begs the question, how does cell phone mast help? A cell phone has a radio transmitter and a receiver, and they are both not very high powered, which means cell phones cannot send signals very far. That is not a flaw, it is a deliberate feature for the design. All cell phones has to do is communicate with its local mast and base station. If we didn't have masts, we need cell phones with enormous antennas and giant power supplies, and they are too cumbersome to be mobile. A cell phone automatically communicates with the nearest cell, the one with the strongest signal, and uses as little power to do so as possibly can, which makes its battery last as long as possible and reduces the likelihood of interfering with other phones nearby. And did I mention cell? Well, we'll get to that right now. Why don't cell phones simply talk to one another directly? Suppose several people in your area all want to use a cell phone at the same time. If their phones all send and receive calls in the same way, using the same kind of radio waves, the signal will interfere and scramble together, and it will be impossible to tell from one call to another. But if each phone uses a slightly different frequency, the call can easily keep separate from each other. They can travel through air like radio stations that use wavebands. That's fine if there's only a few people calling at once. But suppose you are in the middle of a big city and millions of people are calling at once. Then you need millions of separate frequencies. The solution is to divide the city up into smaller areas, with each one served by its own mast and base station. These areas are called cells. This is why urban areas have more cells than rural areas, and why the cells in urban areas are much smaller. The network of cell towers then sends their radio waves to your friend's cell phone. Your friend's cell phone will later receive the radio waves, and it will convert it back into an electrical signal. The electrical signal will then convert its signal back to the sound. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is how phones work.